Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Hugh Mason, Cabinet Member for Planning Policy and City Development. Councillor Vernon Jackson, the leader, has delegated authority to me as a Cabinet Member to chair the meeting today in the absence of Councillor Susie Horton, the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education, who is unwell. Please be assured that we have put appropriate cleansing and social distancing measures in place to ensure that this meeting is undertaken in a COVID-secure manner. Limited public seating has been made available, and this has been allocated in such a way that all present are aware of the COVID security protocols in place. This meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to view remotely if they so wish. Please be advised that the public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. Can I please ask members to remain seated throughout the duration of the meeting and to wear a face covering unless seated. We now come to the usual housekeeping. Safety information. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. May I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed. Everyone speaking will be on camera. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting, on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. We now come to introductions round the table. I have introduced myself as Councillor Hugh Mason.
Councillor Judith Smythe, St Jude Ward, spokesman for this on this committee, and I've got no interest to declare.
Thank you.
Councillor Terry Norton, Conservative spokesperson, and mine is my usual one, and that is that I am employed at Mayfield School, albeit through an external agency.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike Stoneman, Deputy Director for Education.
Alison Edgerton, Group Accountant for Children's, Families and Education.
Angela Mann, Finance Manager for Children, Families and Education.
Jonathan Waite, Democratic Services Officer.
Karen Martin, Democratic Services.
And that concludes the Mary Throng. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Only from Councillor Horton.
Okay, thank you. Most members, the members have already declared their interests, and so we come to the first item on the agenda today, which is the Dedicated Schools Grant, Quarter 2 Budget Monitoring, which is on pages 9 to 16 of your report. Who is presenting this, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is the regular quarterly report which updates the Cabinet Member on the forecast outturn position based on the expenditure for the second quarter of the 21-22 financial year. Overall, the budget is forecast to underspend by £863,000, and this relates to the funding for pupils with education, health and care plans in mainstream schools, special schools and out-of-city placements, the reasons for which are detailed in the report. It should be noted that, as in previous years, those forecasts are likely to change, as the class lists for the new academic year are not received until the October half term, which is after the end of the second quarter's reporting period. As previously reported, the Department for Education has changed the timing of the adjustments to the early years block for 21-22, and this is due to the national lockdowns. Following the completion of this report, Following the completion of the report, the authority submitted pupil data for the autumn term 2021 and expects the early years funding to be reduced in February 2022. Based on the summer term pupil numbers, the early years budgets have been forecast on budget, and following the receipt of the updated allocations and the autumn term pupil data, the budgets will be adjusted and the forecast position reported. It should be noted that there is no change to the funding that will be received by early years settings or the hourly rates paid. Finally, the Cabinet member is asked to note the financial year-end budget position for the Dedicated Schools Grant as at the 30th of September 2021, together with the associated explanations in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that report. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Smythe.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question which I think it's possible some members of the public may be also interested in this. Is there any sense in which the 800,000 underspend is on Chinese children has left any child without services they needed? And second of all, is it likely that that money will be spent by the end of the year?
Thank you.
The information that we have provided within the report sets out the payments that we've been either received information from special schools within the city requesting payment for the class list that they provide, or via the SEND team, which look after the payments to outer city placements and other local authority special schools where we have children placed. So as far as our understanding is that every child that's within one of our settings or we have placed within a setting has received the appropriate funding. Over the course of the year, we have started to see an increase in pupils with education, health and care plans, and we're expecting that increase to continue due to the outturns of the pandemic. However, education, health and care plans do take a number of weeks to come to fruition and the funding to be actually agreed, so there is a time lag on those.
Councillor Norton.
Yep, just to extend on Councillor Smythe's point, if that's okay. So if that money isn't spent by the end of the year, does that become ring-fenced? Do we give that back? Does it go into another pot, or does it stay where it is for future budgets?
At the end of the financial year, any underspend or overspend goes into the carry forward for the use of the next financial year. It is ring-fenced within the Dedicated Schools Grant budget and therefore for use in future years.
So anybody who is looking for an educational healthcare plan isn't at the moment being rejected due to funding reasons or anything like that?
Yeah, just to confirm, no, that's not the case.
Right,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? It's recommended that the Cabinet member notes the forecast year and budget position for the Dedicated Schools Grant as of the 30th of September 2021, together with the associated explanations contained within this report. I am minded so to do, and will do so. Thank you. We now come to item 4, School Funding Arrangements 2022-23. Who is presenting this? Right.
Thank you. The report follows previous reports which outline the approach set in the schools' budgets. Both primary and secondary schools will be funded using the national funding formula for the financial year 2022-23. In summary, the values published by the DFE have been increased in line with the Portsmouth area cost adjustment. The minimum per pupil funding levels have been used as shown in Table 3, and because of this, 7 schools received additional funding through this mechanism. In addition to that, a minimum funding guarantee has been able to be applied of 2% compared to the 2021-22 funding. The report notes the changes to the way the national domestic rates are paid, but this does not affect the way the schools are funded. The lump sum minimum in the national funding formula for 2022-23 is £123,000, but due to the additional growth fund, which we project is not needed, we propose that this lump sum is increased to £137,000, which will be a one-off for 22-23. The growth fund is detailed in 5.19 and shows the calculations and why we think there is sufficient funding for the next 5 years. The criteria is for endorsement after Schools Forum approved this, and it's included in Appendix 3. For the Central Schools Services block, this saw an increase of 10.9%, including passporting pay and pension grants for centrally employed teachers. And Section 6 gives the details of the use of that £1 million. For early years, the funding per hour has increased, but we are expecting a reduced number of hours to be taken compared to 2021-22, which will affect the funding that's received by the City Council. The consultation on the additional funding per hour has closed, and the details will be in next month's report. And the high needs budget's increased by £3 million, and they're still being worked on. And again, we'll be bringing that back to next month's meeting. But Section 8 does detail some of the things which we're taking into account in setting the high needs budgets. Finally, the report also details information on the supplementary grant as we have it at the moment, and we're still looking at how we will distribute this for the high needs places. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Smythe.
I've got a couple of questions. One is, given the very absolutely crucial importance of early years, good high-quality early years education for very small preschool children and for the preschool children, the reasons that I think I understand from this report are more to do with census numbers and decline in that population, or is there a sense in which some parents are not sending their children to early years education because of COVID and the habit of keeping children at home, in which case I'd be rather worried about it. And I have another question after that, please.
Yeah, I'll just come in on some of that. So, yes, certainly the demographics are part of this, and some parents have held back children going to nursery, but we are now seeing that increase actually and getting back to normal levels. So a bit of a blip there, but certainly not something we're looking to see sustained. But certainly the demographics are the big factor here. Yeah.
Early years, good quality early years education is absolutely crucial, and I know some schools are reporting that the intake into Year R has been somewhat held back by COVID.
I mean, there may be some of that. Well, we're not seeing too much of that. I mean, the Year R numbers are certainly lower because we forecasted that there would be lower numbers this year, and in fact there'll be lower numbers the year after. So we are seeing that mainly because the birth rate has come down and has an impact on those figures. Yeah.
Thank you. My information isn't just from Portsmouth, but that's why I wanted that reassurance. Thank you. My other question, which is, I think could you reassure me that this is the same report that went to the Schools Forum and which was passed through by them last week?
It is, correct.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Norton? No questions? Right. The recommendation is that the Cabinet member approves the proposed changes to the mainstream schools revenue funding arrangements as set out in Section 5, approves the school revenue funding pro forma at Appendix 4 for submission to the ESFA on the 21st of January this year, approves the use of the carry forward on the school-specific contingency for the same purpose in 2022-23, approves the budget to be held centrally for the payment of central licenses negotiated nationally for all schools by the Secretary of State, approves the use of the 2021-22 underspend on the Growth Fund for the same purpose in 2022-23, endorses the Growth Fund budget for 22-23 as set out in Appendix 1 and the criteria for 22-23 as set out in Appendix 3. And finally, endorses the budgets to be held centrally specifically for the Schools Forum, for admissions, and for duties retained by the local authority for all schools. I accept that recommendation. I am minded to approve and do so. Thank you. That, I think, concludes the entertainment of for the afternoon. Councillor Norton.
Yeah, just one point from me. I think it's that time of the year where we're looking at budgets, and the next meeting that we'll have, certainly at full council, is a full budget meeting, and I think it's worth acknowledging that within this portfolio, it's very difficult, I think, to go and look for savings, certainly in a portfolio that we hold close to our hearts, but we must acknowledge the strain that this portfolio has. So I guess it's an air of encouragement as we're all looking at budgets, to try and include some sort of income generation within our plans to make sure that we're easing the burden that the portfolio may put on, the overall deficit and things. So let's hope we can be quite creative with our income generation to ease some of the, so that we're not having to take money from this portfolio.
Thank you very much, Councillor Norton. I assume that Councillor Horton will be watching this and will take that on board. And we certainly wish her well for a speedy recovery. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the afternoon's entertainment.
Councillor Mason, apologies. Just to let you know that Councillor Smith did submit her apologies for the meeting. So
Right,
we will
you.
record that. Please
record those.
We will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.